You begin by noticing your own breath. It moves in without effort, and then leaves again, slow and warm, carrying the weight of the day out with it. In the quiet of this moment, breathing feels like the simplest motion in the universe. Nothing forced. Nothing rushed. Just a gentle expansion, followed by a release. As your breathing settles, you are invited to imagine that the universe breathes too. Not in lungs, not with air, but with space itself. The vast darkness between stars slowly stretches, expanding in all directions at once. This idea arrives softly, because it is not dramatic or sudden. The universe is not exploding outward. It is not tearing itself apart. It is simply growing, calmly, patiently, the way a sleeper's chest rises in the night. For most of human history, the sky appears still. The stars seem fixed, dependable, always returning to the same places year after year. You can understand why early thinkers imagined the universe as eternal and unmoving. When you look up, nothing appears to shift. Nothing announces motion. And yet, beneath that stillness, everything is quietly drifting. You picture galaxies not as isolated islands, but as patterns drawn on a stretching fabric. As the fabric expands, the patterns move farther apart, even though they themselves are not trying to move. No center. No edge. Just more space appearing between everything that already exists. This expansion is subtle, like time passing while you sleep. You imagine light traveling toward you from distant stars. Some of that light begins its journey billions of years ago, long before Earth forms, long before your body exists. As it moves, space itself stretches beneath it, lengthening the journey, softening the light, shifting it gently toward red. This stretching is not a force you can feel, but it leaves fingerprints everywhere, quietly recorded in the sky. The universe reveals its motion not through sound or vibration, but through color. You imagine astronomers noticing this long ago, watching distant galaxies glow slightly redder than expected, as if their light has been gently pulled apart. This redshift is not a warning or a signal of danger. It is simply evidence that space has been stretching while the light travels. A cosmic memory written in waves. You let that thought settle. Space is not empty and passive. It is active. It participates. As you rest, you begin to sense the scale of this motion. Galaxies are not racing away from you personally. Wherever you imagine yourself standing, the same pattern appears. Every galaxy sees others moving away. Expansion is not about location. It is about the relationship between everything. This is comforting in an unexpected way. There is no special place, no preferred center. You are not behind or ahead. You are simply part of the unfolding. You imagine the universe long ago, denser and warmer, everything closer together. Not crowded, but intimate. Over time, space opens slowly, creating room for stars, for planets, for quiet moments like this one. Expansion becomes the reason complexity is possible. Without it, there would be no long-lived stars, no stable worlds, no time for life to learn itself. The universe does not rush its growth. It allows time. You notice how this mirrors your own body. Growth is gentle when it lasts. The most meaningful changes arrive slowly, almost unnoticed, until one day you realize how far you have traveled. As you breathe, you let the metaphor deepen. The universe inhales matter and energy into structure, then exhales space to make room for change. This is not a perfect comparison, but it is close enough to feel. Close enough to rest inside. You remember that expansion was once a shocking idea. It asks you to accept that the universe has a history, that it changes, that it is not frozen in place. This realization quietly reshapes how you understand everything else. If space itself can grow, then permanence becomes an illusion, and motion becomes the natural state. Still, the expansion is not chaotic. It follows a rhythm, a rule, a steady pace that can be measured, described, and trusted. You imagine standing on a calm shore, watching the tide move out. The water retreats not in panic, but with patience, revealing patterns in the sand that were always there, just hidden. Expansion feels like that. A slow revealing. As your thoughts drift, you feel the comfort of knowing that this motion does not threaten you. The expansion of the universe does not pull atoms apart. It does not stretch your body or loosen the earth beneath your feet. On small scales, other forces hold things together. You remain safely stitched into your surroundings. The universe knows when to be gentle. You allow yourself to imagine the night sky again, this time not as a ceiling, but as a deep ocean of space. Every point in that ocean drifts away from every other point, not because they are fleeing, but because the ocean itself is widening. The motion is built into the fabric. This understanding does not demand urgency. There is nothing you need to do about it. The universe expands whether you watch or sleep, whether you understand or not. Your role is simply to exist within it. And that is enough. You let the idea repeat softly in your mind, the universe is expanding. The universe is expanding. Each repetition feels less strange, more like a lullaby. The words lose their sharpness and become texture, like waves against a distant shore. You sense how this expansion creates time as much as space. More room means more moments. More moments mean more stories. The universe does not just move outward. It moves forward. As the chapter draws towards stillness, you feel the gentle truth beneath it all. The universe is not finished. It is not settled. It is in the middle of becoming, and so are you. Space continues to stretch, quietly, patiently, like a breath slowly leaving cosmic lungs. And somewhere within that motion, another question waits, already forming, about the force that should be pulling everything back together, and why it seems to hesitate. You begin by noticing how completely gravity holds you. Your body rests without effort, pressed gently into the surface beneath you. There is no need to think about staying in place. Gravity does the remembering for you. It keeps your bones aligned, your muscles relaxed, your breath steady. It is the most familiar force you know, so constant that it usually fades from awareness. Gravity feels like trust. From your very first moments, it teaches you where down is. It shapes how you crawl, how you stand, how you learn to walk by falling and rising again. It becomes the background promise that the world will not drift away while you sleep. Tonight, you allow yourself to feel that promise more clearly. Gravity reaches beyond your body. It holds the oceans against the earth, keeps the air wrapped around the planet like a soft blanket, guides the moon in its patient orbit. Without gravity, nothing would stay gathered. Everything would loosen, drift, and dissolve into quiet separation. You imagine the universe without it, and the image refuses to settle. Instead, you return to the way gravity gathers. It pulls scattered dust into clouds, clouds into stars, stars into galaxies. It is the patient hand that brings things together over long stretches of time. Not hurried. Not forceful. Just persistent. In this way, gravity feels like memory. It remembers where matter has been, and gently invites it back toward itself. Every planet follows paths carved by gravity's influence. Every star is born from a slow collapse, drawn inward by its own weight until light ignites at its center. You imagine gravity as stitching, thread looping through space, binding matter into patterns that last for billions of years. These stitches are invisible, but they hold fast. They give the universe structure, rhythm, and shape. For centuries, gravity feels complete. You remember how it is described as an attraction, a pull between masses. The more matter something has, the stronger its influence. This idea is simple enough to hold, like a stone warming in your palm. It explains falling apples, arcing moons, the elegant dance of planets around stars. Later, gravity grows deeper, more subtle. It becomes the bending of space itself. Massive objects curve the space around them, and other objects follow those curves, like leaves drifting along a gentle slope. Gravity is no longer a force acting across distance, but a shape, a geometry, a quiet reshaping of the universe's fabric. This understanding feels beautiful, satisfying, almost complete. And yet, as you lie here, wrapped in the safety of gravity's pull, a question begins to form. It does not rush in. It arrives slowly, like a breeze through an open window. If gravity gathers things together, why is the universe pulling itself apart? You remember the expansion from before. Space stretching. Galaxies drifting away. A universe breathing out. Gravity should resist that motion. It should slow the expansion, tugging matter back toward itself, urging the cosmos to settle, to calm, to draw inward again. For a long time, this is exactly what scientists expect. You imagine early astronomers assuming that the universe's expansion is gradually losing momentum, like a ball thrown upward, slowing as gravity works against it. This seems reasonable. This feels like gravity behaving as it always has. But the universe, it turns out, has other ideas. You let that realization hover without explanation. It feels strange, like discovering that a familiar friend has been quietly changing when you weren't looking. Gravity is still there. You can feel it. You trust it with your body. Planets still orbit. Stars still form. Galaxies still hold together. On these scales, gravity is dependable, precise, almost tender. So where does the uncertainty live? It lives in the vast spaces between galaxies. In the long distances where matter thins out and emptiness stretches wide. In places where gravity's grip becomes subtle, almost whisper-soft. There, something unexpected seems to happen. You imagine gravity reaching across enormous distances, trying to gather everything back together, but finding itself matched, or even outpaced, by something else. Something that does not pull inward, but pushes outward. Something patient and persistent. This does not mean gravity is broken. Instead, it suggests that gravity may not be alone. You sit with that idea gently. Gravity has always been the star of the story, the force that shapes everything from falling leaves to orbiting galaxies. But perhaps it shares the stage with something quieter, something that only reveals itself when the universe grows large and sparse. The thought does not threaten gravity's importance. It adds depth to it. You think of gravity not as a simple rule, but as a chapter in a longer book. On small scales, it tells a clear and reliable story. On larger scales, the story becomes more complex, layered with influences that are harder to see. This is how understanding often grows. What feels complete at first later reveals edges, seams, places where curiosity slips through. Not because the idea was wrong, but because it was incomplete. Gravity may be exactly what it has always been, and still part of a larger conversation unfolding across space and time. You find comfort in that. It means the universe is not misbehaving. It is simply more subtle than first impressions allow. The laws that govern it are not brittle. They are flexible, patient, capable of holding surprises without breaking. As you rest, gravity continues to do its quiet work. It holds you close to the earth while your thoughts drift far beyond it. It gently reminds you that even as the universe expands, connection remains. Things still gather. Structures still form. Balance still exists. You sense the tenderness in this balance. Too much gravity, and everything collapses into dense stillness. Too little, and nothing ever gathers at all. The universe seems to hover between these extremes, allowing complexity to bloom without tearing itself apart. That balance feels intentional, even if its origins remain mysterious. You let the question return, softer now. What if gravity isn't lying, but simply not telling the whole story yet? What if its role changes depending on the scale, the distance, the quiet vastness of space? This question does not demand an answer tonight. It simply opens a door. As your breathing slows, you imagine gravity loosening its grip just enough for another discovery to slip through. Somewhere, far away, astronomers are watching distant stars, measuring their light, expecting gravity to be winning its long, patient struggle. And soon, very soon, the universe will gently prove them wrong. You imagine a quiet room filled with expectation. Not the kind of excitement that buzzes, but the calm confidence that comes from believing you already know how the story ends. For decades, astronomers look out at the universe with this feeling. They know space is expanding. They know gravity should be slowing that expansion. The only mystery seems to be how quickly the universe is easing its pace. This expectation feels reasonable. Comforting, even. You picture scientists turning their attention to distant stars, not to challenge this idea, but to measure it carefully. They search for objects bright enough to be seen across enormous distances, steady enough to be trusted, familiar enough to serve as markers in the dark. They find them in dying stars. These stars live quietly for millions or billions of years, then end in sudden brilliance. For a brief time, they shine with nearly the same intensity every time, like candles of known brightness lit across the universe. By comparing how bright these explosions appear from Earth, astronomers can estimate how far away they are. You imagine these stellar candles glowing patiently, waiting to be read. As light from these explosions travels toward Earth, it carries two messages. One tells how far it has come. The other reveals how much space has stretched along the way. Together, these messages are meant to confirm what everyone expects: expansion slowing under gravity's gentle resistance. But the universe, it seems, has been quietly preparing a different answer. You imagine the moment the data begins to settle into place. Numbers align. Patterns emerge. And slowly, almost reluctantly, a realization forms. The distant explosions are dimmer than expected. Farther away than they should be if the universe is merely coasting. Something is off. At first, the response is caution. Instruments are checked. Calculations repeated. Assumptions questioned. This is how careful thinking works. You do not rush to rewrite the universe because of a whisper. But the whisper persists. Again and again, the measurements point in the same direction. The farther back in time the light comes from, the stranger the result becomes. The universe is not slowing down. It is speeding up. You pause with that thought, letting it land gently. Speeding up does not mean racing wildly. It means accelerating, increasing its pace ever so slightly over immense spans of time. Still, this is enough to overturn expectations built over generations. Gravity should be winning. But it isn't. You imagine the stillness in those rooms as the implication sinks in. This is not a loud discovery. There is no sudden celebration. Instead, there is a quiet, almost uncomfortable calm. The kind that comes when something deeply assumed begins to loosen. The universe is expanding faster now than it did in the past. This means that something is pushing outward, counteracting gravity's pull on the largest scales. Something subtle enough to go unnoticed for most of cosmic history. Something patient enough to wait billions of years before making itself unmistakable. You feel the weight of that realization without letting it overwhelm you. This discovery does not feel like failure. It feels like an invitation. The universe is not misbehaving. It is revealing a deeper layer, one that was always there, waiting for the right moment and the right tools to be seen. You imagine space itself responding to this unseen influence, stretching a little more each moment than the one before. The expansion becomes not just motion, but intention, as if the universe is gently insisting on more room. This insistence is quiet, but relentless. You think about how strange it is that this revelation comes from looking backward in time. The farther away something is, the older the light you receive. To see the universe accelerating now, you must look into its past and notice how expansion used to be slower. Time itself becomes part of the measurement. You let that idea soften in your mind. The universe keeps a memory of its own motion, written into the light that reaches you. By reading that memory, you glimpse not just where things are, but how the universe has been changing all along. The discovery spreads, carefully, from one group of researchers to another. Independent teams see the same pattern. The whisper grows steadier, more confident. The conclusion holds. Acceleration is real. You imagine how this changes the story of the cosmos. The future is no longer a slow settling, a gentle drawing back together. Instead, space continues to open. Galaxies drift farther apart. Isolation grows, not suddenly, but inevitably. And yet, this future is not frightening. It is quiet, spacious, patient. The universe is not tearing itself apart. It is simply choosing expansion over reunion. The stars continue to shine. Galaxies remain intact. Local neighborhoods stay bound by gravity, even as the larger structure stretches thin. You feel a sense of calm in this balance. This discovery does not erase gravity's role. It reframes it. Gravity still governs what is close and dense. But on the grandest scales, something else takes the lead, guiding the universe's long-term rhythm. You notice how gently the universe communicates this truth. There is no dramatic signal, no sudden shift in the sky. Only careful observation, deep patience, and a willingness to listen to what the data is quietly saying. This is science at its most human. It is not about control or certainty. It is about humility. About allowing nature to correct you without resentment. About accepting that the universe does not owe you simplicity. As you rest, you imagine the night sky unchanged to the naked eye. The same constellations. The same calm darkness. And yet, beneath that stillness, an entirely new understanding hums, invisible and steady. Acceleration becomes part of the universe's voice. You let yourself feel the softness of this moment. A truth that arrives without force. A discovery that changes everything without disrupting your sleep. The universe expands faster than expected, and you remain safely held by the earth. Nothing urgent is required of you. This realization will take years to settle into theory, decades to fully explore. Names will be given. Explanations proposed. Debates will unfold slowly, carefully, across generations. But for now, there is only the quiet fact of it. The universe is not slowing down. It is gently, persistently, picking up speed. As your thoughts begin to drift, you sense the next question already forming in the darkness. If something unseen is shaping the universe's expansion, it will need a name, even before it is understood. And in the next quiet moment, scientists will offer one, not as an answer, but as a placeholder for wonder. You notice how often naming feels like knowing. In everyday life, a name brings comfort. Once something has a word attached to it, it feels smaller, more manageable, less likely to surprise you in the dark. You name emotions, places, constellations in the sky. Each name becomes a handle, something your mind can gently hold. So when the universe reveals its unexpected acceleration, the human response is familiar. Before there is an explanation, there is a name. Dark energy. You let the words settle slowly, without urgency. They sound heavy, mysterious, almost dramatic, but their purpose is simpler than that. They do not explain. They acknowledge. They mark a space where understanding has not yet arrived. Dark energy is not darkness. It does not mean shadow or evil or emptiness. It is called dark for the same reason dark matter is. It does not shine. It does not glow. It does not announce itself in light. It reveals its presence only through its effects, like wind traced by moving leaves. And it is called energy not because it behaves like heat or motion, but because it seems to fill space with an ability to do something. To push. To influence. To shape the future of the universe. You imagine scientists choosing this name carefully, knowing it is incomplete. They are not pretending to understand. They are creating a placeholder, a quiet label that says, something is here, even if we do not yet know what it is. This feels honest. You think about how often you do the same thing in your own life. You give names to feelings you cannot fully explain. You call something longing, or grief, or wonder, even when it is more complicated than the word allows. The name does not solve it. It gives you permission to sit with it. Dark energy works the same way. It is a signpost, not a destination. You let yourself imagine the universe filled with this unnamed presence, not clumped into stars or galaxies, but spread evenly, smoothly, everywhere. Unlike matter, which gathers and condenses, dark energy seems content to remain diffuse, woven quietly into the fabric of space itself. This difference matters. Matter pulls. Dark energy pushes. Matter grows stronger when it clumps together. Dark energy grows stronger as space itself grows. The more room the universe makes, the more influence this mysterious component seems to have. You feel the elegance of that symmetry. As the universe expands, dark energy does not thin out. It does not weaken. Instead, it becomes more important over time, slowly taking the lead in shaping cosmic history. This is why it remains unnoticed for so long. In the early universe, when everything is close and dense, gravity dominates. Only later, when space stretches wide and quiet, does dark energy begin to speak clearly. You imagine it waiting patiently. There is no rush in its behavior. No sudden takeover. Just a gradual shift, unfolding over billions of years. The universe transitions gently, almost imperceptibly, from a gravity-led story to one guided by expansion. You find something deeply calming in this slowness. Dark energy does not interrupt. It does not demand attention. It simply exists, steady and consistent, shaping the largest possible view of reality. It reminds you that not everything important announces itself loudly. You sit with the discomfort of not knowing what dark energy truly is. Is it a property of space itself? A kind of background pressure that becomes noticeable only when space grows vast? Is it something even stranger, a sign that the laws you trust are incomplete at the largest scales? The name does not answer these questions. And that is its strength. By naming the unknown, science makes room for curiosity without pretending certainty. Dark energy becomes a shared acknowledgement of mystery, a way to say, we are listening, even if we do not yet understand the language. You imagine the universe responding not with answers, but with more silence. Not an empty silence, but a full one, rich with possibility. The kind of silence that invites careful thought rather than fear. This is not the first time humans face such a moment. There are other names like this in science, names that begin as placeholders and later transform or fade away. Ether. Phlogiston. Even gravity itself once exists as a description long before its deeper nature is understood. Some names survive refinement. Others are gently retired. Dark energy may one day become something clearer, or it may dissolve into a deeper theory that no longer needs it. For now, it remains. You feel comfort in the idea that uncertainty is not failure. It is a stage. A necessary pause between observation and understanding. The universe does not rush its explanations, and neither should you. As your breathing slows, you imagine dark energy not as a threat, but as a quiet background presence, like the hum of a distant city at night. Always there, shaping the experience without demanding attention. It does not pull galaxies apart violently. It does not tear structures loose. It simply encourages space to keep opening, gently insisting on distance, patience, and time. You notice how this mirrors the emotional tone of the universe itself. Expansion without urgency. Change without chaos. Growth without force. Dark energy becomes less frightening when you release the need to define it fully. When you allow it to remain a mystery held lightly, rather than a problem to be solved immediately. You rest inside that permission. The universe does not owe you complete understanding before bedtime. It offers something quieter instead, the knowledge that mystery and meaning can coexist. That naming the unknown is not about control, but about care. You feel yourself drifting as the idea repeats softly. Dark energy is a name we give to what we have noticed but not yet understood. A word that marks curiosity, not conclusion. In the silence between thoughts, you sense the next step forming naturally. If something fills all of space, if it influences expansion so gently and consistently, then perhaps the next question is not what it is, but how it is measured. How light, traveling patiently across billions of years, carries clues about the stretch of everything. And as that question settles into the quiet, your mind prepares to follow the glow of distant stars, using their fading light as a ruler, to measure the universe's slow, endless breath. You imagine holding a ruler made of light. Not a rigid object with sharp markings, but something softer, something that stretches and bends as it travels. This is the kind of ruler the universe offers. It is the only one large enough to measure distances so vast that numbers alone begin to lose their meaning. Light becomes the storyteller. Every photon carries a memory of where it has been. It remembers how far it has traveled, how long the journey has taken, and how much space has quietly unfolded beneath it along the way. By listening carefully to that memory, astronomers learn how the universe stretches. You let this idea settle gently. Measuring the universe is not about reaching outward. It is about waiting. About receiving light that has already been traveling for billions of years, arriving now with a message written in its color and brightness. Some lights are especially helpful. You return to the image of exploding stars, the stellar candles that briefly shine with predictable brilliance. These events are rare and fleeting, but when they appear, they glow with a steadiness that can be trusted. Like lanterns placed along a long, dark road, they allow distance to be estimated, even across unimaginable space. You imagine these explosions not as violence, but as generosity. A star giving one last gift of light, bright enough to cross the universe and reach you while you rest. That light dims as it travels, not because it weakens, but because it spreads, diluted by the expansion of space itself. Brightness becomes a clue. If a candle looks dimmer than expected, it is farther away. If it looks redder than expected, space has stretched while the light was on its way. These two measurements together form a kind of cosmic map, showing not only where something is, but how the universe has changed during the journey. You feel the elegance of this method. Nothing is forced. Nothing is disturbed. The universe reveals itself simply by being observed. You imagine astronomers plotting these points carefully, each one a whisper from the past. Nearby explosions tell one story. Distant ones tell another. When these stories are laid side by side, a pattern emerges, slow and unmistakable. The universe is stretching faster now than it used to. This realization does not come from a single observation, but from patience, from layering thousands of measurements atop one another until the noise fades and the rhythm becomes clear. The expansion is not random. It follows a curve, a gentle acceleration written across time. You let yourself feel the scale of this work. Human lives are brief. Instruments change. Technologies evolve. And yet, the universe's motion is steady enough that it can be traced across generations. The cosmos keeps time better than any clock. Light also stretches as space stretches. As photons travel, their waves lengthen, sliding gently toward red. This is not because they are tired or fading, but because the space between their peaks grows wider. Redshift becomes another ruler, one that measures expansion directly, wave by wave. You imagine space expanding not in bursts, but continuously, like dough slowly rising. Every second, every moment, the distance between faraway places grows just a little more. Light moving through that space adapts, stretching along with it. This stretching does not blur the universe into confusion. It preserves information with remarkable care. The light still arrives clean, readable, carrying a precise record of its journey. The universe may be vast, but it is not careless. You find comfort in this reliability. Distance, time, and motion become intertwined. To measure one is to touch the others. When you look far away, you look back in time. When you measure brightness, you learn about expansion. When you measure color, you glimpse the growth of space itself. The universe turns observation into meditation. You imagine standing at the edge of a calm lake at night. Ripples move outward from a stone dropped long ago, still spreading, still measurable by the spacing between waves. The universe's expansion feels like that. A motion that began in the deep past, continuing now, visible in the spacing of light itself. You notice how gentle this measurement is. No probing hands. No disturbance. Only attention. As your thoughts slow, you realize something subtle. The universe does not need to be measured to exist. Measurement is something humans do to understand, not something the cosmos requires. And yet, the universe allows itself to be measured, offering patterns stable enough to read, signals clear enough to trust. This feels like a quiet partnership. You imagine the universe as a patient teacher, repeating the same lesson across billions of light years, knowing that eventually someone will notice. The lesson is simple but profound: space changes. It grows. It stretches. And it does so in a way that can be known. The act of measuring becomes an act of listening. You sense how this listening reveals not just expansion, but consistency. No matter where astronomers look, the same rules apply. Light behaves the same. Space stretches the same. The universe speaks with one voice, even across enormous distances. This consistency is soothing. It suggests that even in a universe filled with mystery, there is order. Patterns persist. Relationships hold. The unknown is framed by what is deeply reliable. As you rest, you imagine all the light currently traveling toward Earth. Photons passing through empty space, through galaxies, through quiet darkness, each one carrying a tiny piece of the universe's story. They do not hurry. They do not pause. they simply move, patiently, until they arrive. Some of that light will reach telescopes. Some will miss and drift on forever. The universe does not mind. Its story does not depend on being heard. And yet, here you are, listening anyway. You feel the rhythm of expansion like a slow heartbeat, steady and persistent. Measure after measure confirms it. Space stretches. Time unfolds. The universe breathes out, not once, but continuously. This knowledge does not pull you into calculation. It eases you into acceptance. The cosmos is large, but not chaotic. It is changing, but not unpredictable. It reveals itself slowly, in ways that reward patience. As your thoughts grow quieter, you sense the next question approaching naturally. If empty space can stretch, if light can reveal its motion, then what exactly fills that space? Is emptiness truly empty, or does it carry something subtle, something with weight and influence? The glow of distant stars begins to fade from focus, and in the quiet between measurements, you feel your attention drifting inward, toward the strange idea that even nothingness may have a presence of its own. You begin by imagining emptiness, not as a frightening absence, but as a pause. The space between breaths. The silence between notes in a song. At first, empty space feels like nothing at all, a simple background where things happen but which has no role of its own. For most of human thought, this makes sense. If something is empty, it should be quiet, passive, unimportant. But the universe asks you to look again. You imagine drifting far from stars, far from galaxies, into the wide stretches where almost nothing remains. No planets. No dust clouds. No glowing matter. Just space itself, stretching endlessly in all directions. This is the most common state of the universe, the condition that fills nearly everything. And it is not silent. Even when stripped of matter, space carries properties. It has structure. It can stretch. It can curve. It can store energy in ways that are subtle but real. The vacuum is not a void in the way an empty room is a void. It is more like a calm ocean surface, smooth from a distance, yet alive with motion beneath. You let that comparison soften in your mind. In modern physics, emptiness is never truly empty. Tiny fluctuations ripple through it constantly. Fields exist everywhere, even where particles are absent. These fields are not things you can touch, but they influence how matter behaves, how forces operate, how the universe evolves. You do not need to picture them precisely. It is enough to feel that space is not nothing. It is a stage that hums quietly, even when no actors stand upon it. You imagine space as a stretched fabric, already familiar from gravity's story. Massive objects bend it. Light follows its curves. But now you consider something gentler. Even when no mass is present to bend space, the fabric itself still exists, still has tension, still responds. This is where the idea begins to feel strange in a soothing way. Empty space appears to have energy simply by existing. Not energy you can extract or use, but a background presence, steady and uniform. When space expands, more of this vacuum comes into being, and with it, more of whatever quiet influence it carries. You feel the elegance of this idea. Expansion does not dilute emptiness. It multiplies it. This is one reason dark energy feels so elusive. It does not clump. It does not gather. It does not shine. It remains evenly spread, perfectly content to fill every corner of the universe without drawing attention to itself. You imagine trying to notice something that looks exactly the same everywhere. No edges. No variations. Just a constant, gentle presence. Detection becomes difficult, not because it is weak, but because it is smooth. And yet, its effect is unmistakable. If empty space carries even a tiny outward pressure, then as the universe grows, that pressure becomes more important. Gravity weakens with distance. Matter thins out. But the influence of empty space remains the same per unit of space, quietly adding up as space itself increases. You rest with that thought. The universe does not need something dramatic to drive its expansion. It only needs emptiness to be slightly active rather than perfectly still. Over billions of years, even the smallest push becomes decisive. You imagine standing in a vast field during a perfectly calm night. No wind you can feel. No sound you can hear. And yet, slowly, steadily, the air cools, the temperature shifts, the environment changes. Influence does not require forcefulness. It requires persistence. Empty space is persistent. You notice how this idea challenges intuition without threatening it. It does not ask you to abandon common sense, only to expand it gently. Emptiness is no longer absence. It is presence without form. You think about how difficult this is to test directly. You cannot scoop up emptiness. You cannot isolate it in a container. You only see it by watching how the universe behaves on the largest scales. The vacuum reveals itself through consequence, not appearance. This feels fitting. Some of the most important things in your life are known the same way. Through their effects. Through the way they shape your choices, your comfort, your sense of direction. Not everything meaningful announces itself clearly. You feel yourself relaxing into this perspective. Empty space does not rush the universe outward. It does not tear galaxies loose. It works patiently, allowing gravity to dominate early on, allowing structure to form, stars to ignite, planets to settle into stable paths. Only when the universe grows spacious enough does emptiness begin to guide the long-term story. You imagine this as a quiet hand on the universe's back, encouraging it forward, not pushing, not pulling, just reminding it that there is room to grow. The idea of a weighted emptiness once seems paradoxical. Now it feels almost comforting. The universe is not balanced on nothing. It rests on a subtle foundation, one that supports expansion without chaos. You notice how this changes your relationship with silence. Silence is not absence. It is space for things to unfold. In the same way, cosmic emptiness becomes the condition that allows the universe to continue evolving, gently and endlessly. As your breathing slows, you imagine the vast stretches between galaxies not as lonely, but as full in their own quiet way. They are not waiting to be filled. They are already complete, already doing their work. This emptiness is not cold or hostile. It is neutral, patient, almost kind. You allow the thought to repeat softly. Empty space is not empty. Empty space is not empty. With each repetition, the idea loses its strangeness and becomes a rhythm, something your mind can rest inside. The universe expands not because something is missing, but because something subtle is present everywhere. As this chapter begins to settle into stillness, you feel another question forming naturally, without pressure. If empty space itself can influence expansion, if it carries energy simply by existing, then perhaps gravity, the force you trust so deeply, may behave differently when space grows vast and sparse. And in that quiet realization, you drift toward the next thought, where gravity begins to look back at itself, wondering how it truly works when the universe becomes wide enough to test its limits. You return once more to gravity, familiar and steady, like a hand you have held your entire life. It is difficult to imagine questioning it. Gravity feels so reliable, so deeply woven into every movement you make. When you drop something, it falls. When you lie down, your body settles. When planets circle stars, they do so with quiet obedience. Gravity has earned your trust. And yet, tonight, you allow yourself to wonder, not whether gravity exists, but whether it tells the whole truth everywhere it operates. You imagine gravity as a language the universe speaks fluently nearby, but perhaps with an accent that changes over great distances. The words remain recognizable, but their meaning shifts subtly as space stretches wide and matter grows sparse. This is not an accusation. It is a curiosity. On the scales you know your body, the Earth, the solar system, gravity behaves exactly as expected. Equations describe it with astonishing precision. Space bends. Objects follow curves. Time itself flows differently near massive bodies. Gravity performs beautifully in these intimate settings. But the universe is vast beyond intimacy. Between galaxies lie distances so great that even gravity's whisper grows faint. Matter thins out. Structure becomes rare. Space dominates. And it is here, in this quiet immensity, that familiar rules may begin to soften. You let this idea settle without resistance. Science does not assume laws must behave identically everywhere by default. It tests. It checks. It listens. When something unexpected appears, it does not accuse reality of error. It asks whether understanding might be incomplete. You imagine gravity stretching, not snapping, under the weight of cosmic distance. Perhaps gravity weakens more quickly than expected. Perhaps its influence changes shape when space itself expands beyond a certain scale. Perhaps what you call gravity is only part of a deeper interaction, one that reveals new behavior when conditions become extreme. This possibility feels unsettling at first. Gravity is one of the pillars of understanding. Questioning it feels like questioning the ground beneath your feet. But as the thought unfolds, it becomes less frightening and more natural. Many ideas that feel foundational turn out to be approximations, accurate within certain ranges, and quietly evolving beyond them. You think of maps. A map of a city works perfectly for walking its streets. A map of a continent works for long journeys. Neither is wrong. Each is simply tuned to a different scale. Gravity, too, may have maps, descriptions that work beautifully nearby, and others that are needed when distances grow enormous. You imagine scientists exploring this idea carefully. They do not discard gravity. They adjust its frame. They ask whether the equations describing how space curves might need subtle additions, small corrections that only matter when space becomes vast and nearly empty. These adjustments are not dramatic. They are gentle nudges, like fine-tuning an instrument so it stays in tune across a wider range. You notice how patient this work is. No one rushes to rewrite gravity lightly. Every proposal is tested against what is already known. Any new idea must still explain falling apples, orbiting planets, bending light, and the slow dance of galaxies. It must honor gravity's successes while extending its reach. This respect feels important. You sense how this mirrors your own process of growth. You do not discard who you were to become who you are. You build upon it. You refine. You adapt. Gravity, too, may be capable of growth and understanding without losing its essence. As you rest, you imagine gravity looking back at itself, not defensively, but curiously, asking whether it has been fully heard, whether its deeper voice has been mistaken for silence in the emptiest places. You imagine space so wide that curvature becomes subtle, almost flat, yet not entirely. In these conditions, small deviations matter. Tiny differences accumulate. Over billions of years, these differences shape the universe's fate. You feel how this idea competes gently with dark energy. Perhaps expansion is driven not by a mysterious substance, but by gravity behaving differently than expected when stretched thin. Perhaps space responds to matter in ways not yet fully captured by existing descriptions. Or perhaps both ideas touch parts of the truth. You do not force yourself to choose. Tonight is not about answers. It is about allowing questions to breathe. You imagine gravity and expansion not as enemies, but as partners in a complex dance. One gathers. One opens. One shapes structure. The other shapes destiny. Their interaction may be richer than a simple push and pull. This richness does not complicate the universe unnecessarily. It deepens it. You find comfort in the idea that the universe is not governed by brittle rules that shatter when questioned. Instead, its laws seem flexible, layered, capable of revealing new behavior without contradiction. Gravity remains real, reliable, present. But it may also be more subtle than its simplest descriptions allow. You feel how this perspective softens uncertainty. Not knowing exactly how gravity behaves on the largest scales does not weaken trust in the universe. It strengthens humility. It reminds you that understanding grows in stages, each one resting gently on the last. As your breathing slows, you imagine gravity continuing to hold galaxies together, even as space between them stretches wider. Clusters remain bound. Stars continue to orbit. Local order persists within global expansion. This coexistence feels important. The universe is not choosing chaos over structure. It is allowing both to exist at once, each at its proper scale. Gravity gathers where it can. Expansion opens where it must. You let the idea repeat softly. Gravity may not be broken. Gravity may be incomplete. With each repetition, the thought becomes less disruptive and more peaceful. Incomplete does not mean wrong. It means open. As the chapter begins to draw towards stillness, you sense other ideas drifting nearby. New fields. New forces. New descriptions whispered gently through equations and observations. They do not shout. They do not compete aggressively. They coexist, waiting to be tested by time and patience. And in that quiet convergence of possibilities, you drift toward the next moment of listening, where explanations gather like overlapping dreams, each offering a soft whisper of how the universe might truly work, if only you listen slowly enough. You begin to sense that the question is no longer only about what pushes the universe outward. It may also be about the shape of the space through which everything moves. Tonight, you imagine space not as an empty stage where events happen, but as something active, responsive, quietly alive. Not alive in the way a creature is alive, but alive in the way a pattern can grow, or a melody can slowly change key. You picture space as geometry made gentle. At small scales, space feels flat. You walk in straight lines. Light travels cleanly. Angles behave. But when distances stretch beyond comprehension, geometry may soften. Lines may curve so subtly that only the universe itself notices. This is not a new idea. It has been with you all along, hiding in plain sight. You remember that gravity, as you know it, is already geometry. Mass tells space how to curve, and curved space tells matter how to move. Objects are not pulled so much as guided, following the natural contours laid out beneath them. Tonight, you extend this idea further. What if the expansion of the universe is not driven by a force pushing outward, but by the way space is shaped at the largest scales? What if the fabric itself is unfolding, like a carefully folded map slowly opening, not because it is pushed, but because its geometry allows it? You sit with this image. A folded map does not need a force to become larger. It only needs room to open. The paper is already there. The expansion is a release, not an addition. Perhaps the universe is doing something similar. Space may contain within it the rules for its own expansion. The geometry may carry instructions written into its very structure, guiding how distances grow over time. No invisible energy required. No hidden substance filling the void. Just space behaving as space naturally does when stretched beyond a certain scale. You feel how quiet this explanation is. There is no drama. No cosmic explosion happening right now. Just a slow, steady reconfiguration, measured not in seconds, but in billions of years. Galaxies drift apart not because something pushes them, but because the space between them gently lengthens. You imagine space like a calm ocean slowly rising, lifting everything with it, without waves, without urgency. This perspective feels soothing. It suggests that expansion is not an act of violence, but of geometry. Not a battle between forces, but a property of shape. You notice how this idea asks you to think differently about distance. When galaxies move away from each other, they are not traveling through space in the usual sense. Instead, space itself grows between them, quietly inserting more distance without motion. This is subtle. Easy to misunderstand. It is like dots drawn on a balloon. As the balloon inflates, the dots move farther apart, even though they never crawl across the surface. The surface expands. The dots simply remain where they are. You allow this metaphor to repeat gently. Galaxies are not running away. Space is breathing outward. And maybe, just maybe, the rate at which it breathes is written into its curvature. You consider how geometry shapes experience in your own life. A curved path feels different from a straight one. A narrow room shapes your movement differently than an open field. Space guides behavior without issuing commands. The universe may be no different. At the largest scales, geometry may encourage expansion simply by existing in a particular form. A slight curvature here, a subtle imbalance there, and over immense time, the effect becomes noticeable. You imagine scientists exploring these ideas carefully. They trace light across cosmic distances. They measure angles between distant objects. They look for tiny distortions, gentle clues that geometry is not perfectly flat after all. These measurements are delicate. They require patience, precision, and humility. A single decimal place can hold a universe of meaning. You appreciate how slow this process is. There is no rush to declare victory. Each observation must agree with countless others. Each theory must align with the universe not as imagined, but as observed. And still, the idea persists. Perhaps expansion is not driven by a mysterious energy pushing outward, but by space relaxing into its preferred shape. Perhaps what you call dark energy is a placeholder, a name given to an effect whose true nature is geometric. This does not mean dark energy disappears. It means its story may change. Names often change before understanding settles. You feel how this possibility does not reduce wonder. It deepens it. Geometry is not cold or abstract here. It is intimate. It governs how light reaches your eyes, how time flows across the cosmos, how the future unfolds. You imagine geometry as a quiet architect, designing the universe not with intention, but with consistency. Lines curve because they must. Distances grow because they are allowed to. Nothing is forced. As your thoughts slow, you notice how this perspective invites rest. If expansion is geometry, then the universe is not straining. It is not racing. It is simply becoming what its shape permits. This mirrors your own experience of relaxation. When you stop resisting, when you allow your body to settle into its natural alignment, effort fades. Breath deepens. Stillness appears without command. Perhaps the universe is doing the same thing. You let the ideas settle into your chest. Space expands not because it must hurry, but because it has room. The chapter begins to soften toward its close. You sense that geometry alone may not tell the entire story. Shapes and forces may be intertwined, each influencing the other. Expansion may arise from a partnership between structure and interaction, not from a single cause. And somewhere ahead, you feel another question forming. If space itself shapes destiny, then how do time and observation fit into this picture? How does the universe remember its past as it unfolds into the future? That question waits patiently, just beyond the edge of this thought, ready to greet you as you drift gently onward. You let your mind drift forward, past the familiar night sky, beyond the Milky Way, and even past the clusters of galaxies that feel so permanent and steadfast. Out there, in the enormous, quiet reaches between galactic islands, the universe slowly decides its fate. You do not need to hurry. The decision unfolds across billions of years, so gentle, so slow, that it can almost be mistaken for patience. You imagine watching galaxies drift apart as if each were a lantern on a lake at dawn. The lanterns are anchored to themselves, glowing faithfully, but the water stretches between them, and the distance grows steadily. They remain whole. They remain luminous. But the space surrounding them widens, softening the connections that once seemed immediate. You feel the calm inevitability of it. Nothing explodes, nothing shatters. It simply spreads. In your imagination, the expansion becomes a story written in light and emptiness. Stars, burning steadily, continue their quiet work of fusing elements. They do not vanish in despair or panic. Their brilliance becomes a soft rhythm against the deep darkness of the widening void. You sense that the universe is not punishing its contents, it is allowing them to exist in a new, quieter arrangement. You notice that emptiness, once unsettling, now feels like an invitation. Space stretches not as an adversary but as a generous companion. It opens the cosmos with the gentleness of a hand pushing open a curtain to reveal dawn. Distance is not a barrier, it is a stage upon which the future can play itself out slowly, without haste, without chaos. You imagine clusters of galaxies, still bound by gravity, maintaining their own small communities even as the larger universe grows ever more spacious. Local order persists even in the face of global expansion. You understand that the fate of the universe is not a sudden cataclysm, but a slow, graceful evolution. Expansion dominates the grand scale, but structure remains, held together in a quiet compromise between growth and cohesion. As time continues, you notice the subtle loneliness that emerges. Galaxies drift farther from one another. Intergalactic space becomes a quiet sea. Light takes longer to travel from one island to the next. You imagine civilizations, if they exist, peering out at increasingly empty skies, noticing fewer neighbors, yet the process is gradual. It is so slow that each moment, each century, is experienced almost normally. Only in hindsight does the vastness reveal itself. And yet, there is a paradoxical comfort in this isolation. Space has room. Time has space. Each galaxy has its own private expanse in which life, energy, and matter can continue their intricate dances undisturbed by distant congestion. The universe is vast, yes, but it is not indifferent. It preserves beauty, continuity, and the integrity of its smaller scales even while allowing the large-scale picture to shift. You imagine stars exhausting their fuel, their light softening, leaving planetary systems to drift in long, slow shadows. Supernovae flash occasionally, reminding you that even in the distant future, the universe retains surprise, pattern, and rhythm. The cosmos is not silent, it whispers in the language of energy and matter, of motion and geometry, of persistence and impermanence. Everything is connected, yet everything has its own space. The expansion itself is gentle. It does not rage. It does not fracture the bonds that gravity has already established. Space grows between structures that are already separate, and the result is a soft stretching rather than a tearing. You feel your own body relax as you picture this. The universe, vast as it is, moves in a kind of rhythmic breathing, expansion, stabilization, flow, rest. You notice that time stretches in tandem with space. As distances grow, the intervals between interactions lengthen. Events become less frequent on the cosmic stage, and the future seems slower, almost meditative. You find this comforting. There is no urgency, no fear that the universe will rush toward an ending. It unfolds with the same deliberate patience you feel in the quiet rhythm of your own breathing. You think of this process as a narrative, a story of continuity rather than collapse. The universe has chosen a path not of sudden destruction but of gradual, expansive unfolding. Galaxies thin out. Stars grow lonely. But the story itself is steady, coherent, and calm. You notice the pattern repeating, the universe expands. Structures endure. Energy is redistributed. The narrative is one of balance, slow evolution, and enduring beauty. You imagine future astronomers, far in the distant eons, watching their skies with wonder. Their observations, though sparse, reveal a cosmos that is consistent and comprehensible. Even as neighbors disappear from view, local regions maintain coherence. Even in vast emptiness, law and order persist. The universe does not abandon its rules. It honors its own history, preserving continuity even as it changes scale. The thought brings you peace. The fate of the universe is not violent or abrupt. It is spacious, elegant, and ultimately gentle. You feel the expansiveness mirror the rhythm of your own thoughts as you settle deeper into stillness. Just as galaxies drift, so do ideas, moving apart yet maintaining coherence. Just as stars fade, so do the urgencies of your day, replaced by calm observation and quiet acceptance. You consider entropy, the measure of energy distribution and disorder. Even here, in the universe's long-term plan, entropy unfolds slowly and predictably. Energy disperses. Systems evolve toward equilibrium. Yet the process is not harsh or frantic. It is steady, methodical, and continuous, allowing the cosmos to retain structure while guiding it toward eventual uniformity. You imagine the universe deciding not out of intent but out of necessity. Space stretches because it does. Time progresses because it cannot stop. Gravity and geometry, dark energy and matter, all play their roles in shaping the long-term story. It is a choreography of inevitability, yet one performed with elegance rather than force. You picture the final clusters of galaxies, still bound, still luminous, floating in the immense dark. They are few, but they exist. Stars continue their cycles, planets orbit calmly, and perhaps life endures, finding meaning in the quiet rhythm of an ever-expanding cosmos. You understand that this is not emptiness. This is potential. This is the universe giving room for processes, creativity, and persistence even as space grows unbounded. You notice the universe's decision is ongoing, not fixed. Expansion may slow or continue, but the choice itself is expressed not through sudden events but through cumulative, gentle motion. Each moment adds subtly to the total picture, like the passing of breath shaping a meditation, like the quiet accumulation of snow on a winter morning. The effect is profound, even when imperceptible at any single instant. You feel that the universe's patience mirrors your own. It does not rush. It does not force. It waits, stretches, allows, and nurtures continuity. This gentle decision-making feels meditative. You recognize that understanding this long-term perspective is like watching a river carve a canyon slowly. The process is calm, inevitable, and beautiful. And in that realization, you sense that time itself is a partner in this unfolding. As space stretches, the moments between events grow, allowing processes to continue without haste. You notice the quiet repetition, expansion, stability, light, and motion, all moving together in a rhythm that is grand yet meditative, vast yet comprehensible. The universe, in deciding its fate, chooses gentleness. It allows structure to remain where it can, lets isolation emerge where it must, and preserves a narrative of beauty within the vast scale of time and space. This is not an ending that frightens. It is an ending or continuation that invites reflection, wonder, and deep calm. and as you drift alongside these thoughts, you sense the next question forming naturally in the quiet. If space can stretch so patiently, if galaxies can drift apart without chaos, if the universe's expansion itself seems intentional yet effortless, then what will become of the unanswered mysteries it carries? How will dark energy, the invisible guide, continue its subtle influence as the cosmos chooses its long-term shape? And in that gentle, unfolding curiosity, you feel yourself moving toward the final chapter, where the universe, your awareness, and the quiet mystery of everything converge in a place of calm reflection and slow, meditative sleep. You let yourself settle, feeling the weight of your body supported by the earth, the steady pull of gravity grounding you. Your breath slows naturally, not forced, and with each inhale and exhale, you drift deeper into the gentle rhythm of the universe. It is a rhythm older than thought, stretching back billions of years, yet it continues patiently, unfolding even as you rest. Tonight, you return to the quiet presence that has accompanied this journey, dark energy. It is invisible. It is unknown. It cannot be grasped directly, yet its effects ripple through the cosmos, shaping the largest scales, guiding galaxies as they drift apart in slow, inevitable motion. You realize you do not need to fully understand it to feel its presence. The mystery itself becomes a soft companion. You notice how comforting this is. In everyday life, unanswered questions can feel like gaps, like incomplete threads dangling in your mind. But in the context of the universe, uncertainty takes on a different quality. It is not a lack of control, it is a feature of existence itself. Not knowing is not failure, it is openness, a space in which curiosity, wonder, and imagination can breathe. You imagine yourself as a small point in this vast cosmos, intimately connected yet minuscule. Your thoughts, your dreams, your existence are all part of a larger rhythm. Galaxies drift apart, stars cycle through life and death, space expands quietly, and through it all, you lie here, noticing, feeling, participating in the cosmos' slow unfolding. There is humility in this perspective, yes, but also profound intimacy. You belong to something far greater than yourself, yet it is never overwhelming. It is gentle, sustaining, and calm. Dark energy, though elusive, becomes a kind of lullaby. Its name is a reminder of the vast unknown, a marker of the limits of understanding. You reflect on the names of other mysteries in your life, the questions that hover in quiet corners, and realize that naming them is not about solving them. It is about presence. It is about acknowledgement. The universe offers the same lesson, presence over control, acknowledgement over mastery. You feel a soft connection between this cosmic principle and your own breathing. Just as space expands without force, just as galaxies drift apart without effort, your body and mind can unfold naturally. Expansion does not require strain, understanding does not require urgency, and presence does not demand completeness. You can rest within the gentle uncertainty, allowing it to cradle your thoughts instead of pressing against them. As your awareness deepens, you sense the continuity of all that has come before. You have imagined the universe's expansion, the invisible push of dark energy, the patient work of light crossing unimaginable distances, and the subtle whispers of gravity adjusting itself across immense scales. Each chapter has been a soft lesson in patience, observation, and wonder. They are threads in a single tapestry, guiding you here, to this quiet reflection. You notice how all these ideas converge in your awareness. The universe has taught you to see the elegance in persistence, the beauty in subtlety, the calm in what cannot be fully explained. You let your thoughts linger on these lessons, appreciating their gentle repetition. They are not pressing, not urgent. They move through your mind like waves, rising and falling with natural rhythm. You imagine the distant future, where stars burn out one by one, galaxies drift so far apart that light no longer reaches them, and the universe stretches into vast, quiet expanse. Even then, space itself remains, patient and persistent. Energy continues to exist, matter remains where it can, and the underlying rules, the gentle whispers of physics, continue to shape what unfolds. The universe will go on, learning in its own way, observing, unfolding, without hurry, without need for explanation. And in that cosmic patience, you find reassurance.